The Joe Rogan Experience.
Weren't you at one point in time, weren't you a Grateful Dead head?
Oh, yeah. I listened to him this morning, yeah.
You used to travel around with them?
Yeah.
How old were you when that was going on?
I went to my first Dead show in December of 1984, so I was 15 at, speaking of the San Francisco Civic Center. Yeah, wow. The New Year's shows, so they always played in Oakland, but one year they played at the in San Francisco. And so we were in Tahoe over Christmas, and for some reason my dad was gone. I don't really know where. So my brother and I drove illegally from Tahoe in the family vehicle to downtown San Francisco.
How old was your brother?
13.
So you drove? Or he drove?
I drove.
15, you drove?
Yeah.
Wow.
From Tahoe. So it was a couple hours. And I remember being on the freeway like,
at 15.
Well, we had a pretty different kind of childhood. But anyway, we didn't.
Is that you?
Yeah, it's me on the left.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that picture is hanging in my barn, and I've never, I don't release any pictures of myself or family or anything like that. And somebody came to my barn and took a picture of that. It's hanging next to my sink, and put it on the internet.
Wow.
So that's my brother Buckley on the right. That picture was taken, so my dad was a reporter in San Francisco in the 60s, and pretty well-known reporter, and that was in the 80s when I was in school, and we were home for Christmas vacation, and he had covered the Grateful Dead. He knew the Grateful Dead. My dad did. So they were in his office. They came through D.C., and they called him, and they came over to his office. Jerry came over to his office, and my dad's like, I've got Jerry Garcia here. You guys should come down. So my brother and I, we lived in Georgetown, and we had a Vespa. Remember those?
Yeah.
And we drove our Vespa. It was freaking cold out. I'll never forget that. We drove our Vespa down to 6th and E or whatever, where my dad's office was, and there was Jerry. I'd never met him before. He was missing the middle finger of his right hand, famously. The famous handprint, Grateful Dead handprint. But when he shook his hand, you could feel it collapse, kind of, because he didn't have that middle finger. But anyway, so my brother and I drove to the New Year's show. It was actually a couple nights before New Year's. And we didn't have tickets, of course. And we were in the park across from there, and we were, doing the, whatever the things that people do at Dead shows, and we were pretty freaking out of it. And this guy comes up out of nowhere and puts a ticket right in my face and goes, here, and hands me a ticket. So my brother was extremely out of it. I mean, he was, I never should have done this, but I was like, all right, man, I'm going in. All right. And I left my little brother in the park during the show, just very, very impaired, super, super impaired. It was completely wrong to do something like that, but I did do it. And then I went in and saw the show, kind of freaked out in the middle of it, hid in the men's room for a while. I'll never forget that. Standing on the stall smoking cigarettes.
Is it acid?
It was psilocybin mushrooms, which, by the way, I should just say, I got sober 22 years ago. I'm completely opposed to anything. I don't take Advil. I'm totally opposed to anything, but other than nicotine and coffee. But yeah, it was mushrooms. So we ate way too many, and started to kind of melt down a little bit. But anyway, the point is, I get out of the show. This is pre-cell phone. This is 1984, and I get out of the show, and they played actually a lot of tunes that they didn't play. They played Spoonful. They didn't play Spoonful a lot. It was a pretty obscure tune. I'd never heard it before, actually. And I couldn't find my brother, my little brother. And I'm in charge, and my closest friend and lifelong friends. Talked to him this morning, and but I couldn't find him. And I was like, oh man, my brother's gone. But there he was. He appeared an hour later. He had spent the entire show in somebody's van parked there. But he seemed undamaged. And